Osh stood at the observation window of the Coalition vessel and watched the pale blue planet below. Earth, the of humanity. He had studied their files for 3 standard cycles, and he still did not understand why the Council cared so much about this young species. They were ancient. They had mapped the stars when humans were still learning to make fire. Osh had served the Coalition for 200 years, and in all that time, he had never received an assignment he considered so beneath his abilities. Shadow the humans the Council had ordered, learn their ways, report on their military capabilities. He turned away from the window and walked through the narrow corridor toward the bridge. His tall, slender body moved with the grace of his kind, and his silver skin reflected the soft lights of the ship. They were known throughout the galaxy for their calm nature and their sharp minds. They did not fight wars. They observed. They calculated. They advised. Ambassador met him at the bridge entrance. She was older than Osh by several centuries, and her eyes held the weight of too many negotiations with too many species. "You do not seem pleased with your assignment," she said. "I am not," Osh admitted. "The humans are barely a century into space travel. What can they possibly teach us?" Smiled in the way they did when they knew something others did not. "Perhaps nothing, perhaps everything. The galaxy has been watching them closely, Osh. There are reasons for this. They are small, they are fragile, they are laughably short. And yet," said, "every species that has fought them has regretted it. Even the void harvesters avoid their territories now." Osh dismissed this with a wave of his long fingers. The void harvesters were raiders and scavengers. They preyed on the weak. The fact that they avoided humans meant nothing. Perhaps the humans simply had nothing worth stealing. A human officer approached them. She was short by standards, barely reaching Osh's chest. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her uniform was crisp and clean. Commander Laura, the file in his mind supplied. 42 years old, veteran of 3 border conflicts, currently serving as military liaison to the Coalition Observation Program. Ambassador, Observer Osh. She nodded to each of them. "We have received a distress signal." His calm expression did not change. "From where?" 442b. Mining colony. Population of approximately 800 mixed species. They are reporting an attack. "By whom?" Commander's jaw tightened slightly. "Void harvesters. 3 ships confirmed. The colony's defenses have fallen. They are requesting immediate assistance." Osh felt a chill run through his body. The void harvesters did not take prisoners. They did not negotiate. When they attacked, they left nothing alive. Every species in the galaxy knew this. "What is the nearest Coalition defense fleet?" asked. 12 hours away at maximum speed. "And the colony's survival estimate?" Commander met the ambassador's eyes directly. "Less than 2 hours." Silence filled the bridge. Osh understood the mathematics immediately. The colony was lost. There was nothing to be done. The logical action was to notify the Coalition Command and begin preparing recovery operations for after the void harvesters departed. "The USS Steadfast is 40 minutes away," Commander continued. "We are the closest vessel." Osh stared at her. "You have 1 ship, they have 3, and the Steadfast is not a warship, it is a patrol vessel." "I am aware of our classification, Observer." "Then you understand that responding would be suicide." Commander turned to face him fully. Her eyes were brown, common among humans, but there was something in them that Osh could not identify. It was not fear. It was not resignation. It was something else entirely. "There are 800 people on that colony," she said. "Children, families, workers who just wanted to earn a living on the frontier. The void harvesters will kill every single one of them." "Yes," Osh agreed. "They will, and you cannot stop them." "Maybe not," Commander straightened her shoulders, "but we can try." She turned and walked toward the command center, where a young human male sat at the tactical station. Lieutenant Park, Osh recalled. 28 years old, Tactical specialist. The lieutenant looked up as the commander approached, and something passed between them, an understanding that required no words. "Plot a course for 442B, Commander ordered. Maximum speed." "Yes, Commander." Osh stepped forward. "This is madness. You are throwing away your lives for nothing." Commander paused. She looked back at him with an expression that seemed almost pitying. "Would you like to observe, Osh? This might be educational." He should have refused. Every logical part of his mind screamed that this was foolish, that these humans were rushing toward their own deaths for no reason. The colony could not be saved. The mathematics were clear. But something in her eyes held him, that strange fire he could not name. "Very well," he heard himself say, "I will observe." The Steadfast shuddered as its engines powered up to maximum. The stars outside the windows stretched into lines of light as they jumped to faster-than-light travel. Osh gripped a support rail and watched the humans around him move with purpose and focus. They were preparing for battle. Every one of them. They checked weapons. They reviewed emergency procedures. They sent messages to loved ones, short recordings that might be their last words, and through it all they did not waver. They did not question. They simply prepared. Lieutenant Park looked up from his console. "Commander, I should note that our chances of survival are approximately 4%. "Noted," Commander replied. "And our chances of saving the colony?" "Lower but not zero." Park nodded and returned to his calculations, as if she had given him a weather report. Osh watched them all. These strange, short-lived creatures who should have been terrified, who should have been running, who should have been doing anything except flying directly toward 3 ships that could destroy them in seconds. Ambassador moved to stand beside him. She was not coming with them. She would remain on the coalition vessel, safe, as protocol demanded. "You asked what they could teach us," she said quietly. "Watch closely, Osh, and remember everything." The Steadfast dropped out of faster-than-light travel. Through the forward window, Osh could see the mining colony burning on the planet below. And above it, like predators circling dying prey, 3 Void Harvester ships waited. Commander stood at the center of the bridge. Her voice was calm and clear. "All hands to battle stations. We have people to save." Osh looked at the humans around him, at their faces, at their eyes, and he realized finally what that strange fire was. It was not courage, it was not duty, it was something far more dangerous. It was certainty, absolute and unshakable certainty that this was exactly where they were supposed to be. And for the first time in his long life, Osh felt afraid. The mining colony was worse than Osh had imagined. Smoke rose from shattered buildings. Bodies lay in the streets, some of them still burning. The air smelled of chemicals and death, and even through the filters of his breathing mask, Osh could taste the destruction. He had seen war before. There were observers, and observers went to many dark places, but he had never seen anything like this. The Void Harvesters did not simply kill. They enjoyed it. They made it last. "Ground team, report." Commander's voice crackled through the communication device in Osh's ear. "Sergeant here, Commander. We have landed in the Eastern District. Heavy damage everywhere. No survivors visible yet. Keep searching. There has to be someone left." Osh walked beside the ground team, his long legs carrying him easily over the rubble. Sergeant Maria led the group of 12 humans. She was shorter than Commander, with dark skin and darker eyes that never stopped moving. Behind her walked Corporal Danny, a young man with a medical kit strapped to his back. The rest were soldiers, their weapons raised and ready. "Why are we on the ground?" Osh asked. "The Void Harvesters are still in orbit. They could destroy us at any moment." Sergeant did not slow down, because people need help. "The Steadfast cannot protect us. 1 ship against 3. The mathematics are clear. The commander is handling the ships. We handle the ground." Osh shook his head. He could not understand these creatures. They walked through death as if it were nothing. They stepped over bodies without flinching. And they kept searching, kept hopping, as if hope were a weapon that could defeat warships. A sound came from somewhere to their left. Faint, almost nothing. But Corporal held up his fist and the entire team stopped instantly. "I heard something," he said quietly. "This way." They moved toward a collapsed building. The structure had fallen in on itself, leaving a pile of broken metal and stone. Osh saw no way anyone could have survived inside. The weight alone would have crushed any living thing. But the humans began digging. They used their hands. They pulled away pieces of metal that cut their palms. They lifted stones that made their muscles shake. And slowly, a small hole appeared in the rubble. "Hello," Sergeant called into the darkness. "Can anyone hear me?" Silence, then so quiet Osh almost missed it, a voice replied. "Help us, please." The digging became faster, more frantic. Corporal squeezed through the opening, his medical kit scraping against the stone. Osh heard him speaking softly, calmly, to whoever was inside. "I have survivors," reported through the communication device. 17, mostly children, some injuries but nothing critical. They hid in the basement when the attack started. Sergeant closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "Get them out, all of them." The extraction took 20 minutes. 20 minutes of careful work, of gentle hands, of soft words spoken to frightened children who had lost everything. Osh watched as human soldiers who carried weapons designed to kill became something else entirely. They became protectors, guardians. They carried children on their backs and held the hands of those who could walk. A little girl emerged last. She was perhaps 6 years old, with blue skin that marked her as a member of a species Osh did not recognize. She was crying silently, her small body shaking with fear. Corporal knelt before her. He spoke in a language Osh did not understand, but the tone needed no translation. It was gentle, patient, kind. The girl reached out and took his hand. "I have you," he said. "You are safe now." Osh looked away. Something was happening inside his chest, a tightness he did not recognize. "Movement," one of the soldiers called out. "Void harvesters, 50 meters and closing." The raiders emerged from the smoke like shadows made solid. They were tall and thin, their bodies covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light itself. Their faces were hidden behind masks that made them look more machine than living creature. And in their hands, they carried weapons that pulsed with red energy. There were many of them, too many. "Form a perimeter around the survivors," Sergeant ordered. Her voice did not shake. Her hands did not tremble as she raised her weapon. "No one gets through." The soldiers moved without hesitation. They placed themselves between the raiders and the huddled group of survivors. 12 humans against perhaps 50 void harvesters. The mathematics were obvious. The outcome was certain. But the humans did not run. The first shots lit up the smoke-filled air. Red energy crashed against human shields, and human bullets tore through void harvester armor. Bodies fell on both sides. The noise was overwhelming, a constant thunder of weapons and screams and explosions. A raider broke through the line. It moved toward the survivors, its weapon aimed at the huddled children. Sergeant threw herself into its path. The energy blast caught her in the shoulder, spinning her around, but she did not fall. She turned and fired 3 times, and the raider collapsed. Her left arm hung useless at her side. Blood soaked her uniform, and she took her position in the line again. Sergeant Corporal called, "Your arm." "Later, hold the line." Osh stood among the survivors. He did not carry a weapon. He was an observer. He was not supposed to fight. But as he watched the humans bleed and die for people they had never met, for children of species not their own, for strangers whose names they would never know, something changed inside him. He did not understand it, he could not explain it, but he felt it. The battle continued. The humans were losing ground. More raiders pushed forward with every moment. The mathematics said they would fall. The logic was clear. They could not win. But they did not stop fighting. Commander's voice came through the communication device, calm despite the chaos. "Ground team, be advised. We have engaged the enemy ships. 2 are focusing on us. 1 is preparing to deploy more ground forces." Sergeant laughed. It was not a sound of joy. It was something else. Something that made even the Void Harvesters pause. "Understood, Commander. Give them hell." "Already doing so. Out." Osh looked up at the sky. Somewhere above the smoke, a single human ship was fighting 3 enemies. Somewhere up there, Commander and Lieutenant Park were doing the impossible. And down here, 12 soldiers, now reduced to 8, were holding a line against 50. For strangers, for children they had never met. For no logical reason at all. The Void Harvesters attacked again, and the humans met them with fire and blood, and something that Osh was only beginning to understand. He picked up a weapon from a fallen soldier's hand. He did not know why. He was an observer. He was not supposed to fight. But some things were worth more than logic. The sky burned above them as the USS Steadfast fought its impossible battle. Osh could see flashes of light through the smoke, brief glimpses of weapons fire, and explosions that painted the clouds in shades of orange and red. 1 ship against 3. The mathematics had not changed. The outcome should have been certain. But the Steadfast was still flying. On the ground, the situation was no better. The human soldiers had formed a tight circle around the survivors. 8 had become 6. The Void Harvesters kept coming, wave after wave, and each wave left more human blood on the broken streets. Osh held the weapon he had taken from the fallen soldier. His hands shook. They did not fight. They observed. They calculated. They advised. In 200 years of service, he had never fired a weapon in anger. A Void Harvester broke through the line. It moved toward the survivors with terrible speed, its red weapon glowing with deadly energy. Osh raised his weapon and fired. The shot went wide. His aim was poor. His training was non-existent, but the distraction was enough. Sergeant turned and put 3 rounds into the raider's chest, dropping it to the ground. She looked at Osh with something that might have been respect. "Welcome to the fight, observer." "I do not understand what I am doing," he admitted. "This is not logical. We cannot win." Sergeant grinned. Her face was covered in blood, some of it hers, some of it not. Her left arm still hung useless at her side. She should have been in shock. She should have been unconscious. "Winning is not the point," she said. "Then what is? Ask me later if we survive." The battle continued. Corporal moved among the survivors, treating injuries with hands that never stopped moving. He had given his body armor to one of the children, a girl with blue skin who clung to his side like he was the only solid thing in a world that had become chaos. Osh watched him work, watched him smile at frightened faces, watched him whisper words of comfort to people who had lost everything. "Why do you do this?" Osh asked him during a brief pause in the fighting. "These are not your people. These are not even your species. Why do you risk your life for them?" Looked up from a wound he was bandaging. His eyes were tired but steady. "Because someone has to." That is not an answer. It is the only answer that matters. A new wave of Void Harvesters emerged from the smoke, more than before, far more. The ground team was down to 5 soldiers now. Sergeant, corporal, and 3 others whose names Osh did not know. 5 humans against perhaps 70 raiders. The mathematics were absolute. There was no possibility of survival. And yet no one ran. Commander's voice came through the communication device. There was static now, the signal breaking up. "Ground team, status report." "Still holding, Commander," Sergeant replied. "But we are running low on everything." "Understood. We have neutralized 1 enemy ship, 2 remaining." 1 ship destroyed. Against all odds, against all logic, the Steadfast had killed a Void Harvester warship. Osh felt something shift inside his chest, something that might have been hope. "One down, two to go," Sergeant said to her team. "The commander is doing her part. We do ours." "The commander is insane," one of the soldiers muttered. "She is human," another replied. "Same thing." They laughed. In the middle of a battle they could not win, surrounded by enemies who wanted them dead, defending strangers they had never met, they laughed. Osh did not understand them. He wondered if he ever would. The Void Harvesters attacked. The 5 remaining soldiers met them with weapons and fists and teeth when the weapons ran dry. Osh fired his weapon until it stopped working, then used it as a club. He fought beside creatures he had once considered primitive. A raider came at him with a blade. Osh was not fast enough to dodge. The blade cut deep into his side, silver blood spilling onto the ground. He fell, pain overwhelming his senses. Strong hands grabbed him, pulled him back. Corporal was there, pressing something against the wound. "Stay with me, observer. This is not a good day to die." "Any day is a good day to die," Osh said. "The mathematics." "Forget the mathematics," tied the bandage tight. "You are with humans now. We do not die easy." The battle raged on. Osh lay among the survivors, watching the 5 soldiers hold the line. They were bleeding from a dozen wounds each. Their ammunition was nearly gone. Their bodies were failing. But they did not stop. Lieutenant Park's voice cut through the static. "Second enemy ship destroyed. The third is attempting to retreat." Sergeant heard this and smiled. It was a terrible smile, a smile that belonged to a predator who had caught the scent of prey. "They are running," she said. "The Void Harvesters are running." The effect on the ground was immediate. The raiders hesitated. Their attacks became less coordinated. For the first time, they seemed unsure. "Push them back," Sergeant ordered. "Show them what happens when they mess with our people." Our people, the survivors, were not human. Most of them were not even from species that had formal relationships with Earth. But Sergeant called them our people. And the soldiers obeyed. They pushed forward with the last of their strength. They screamed war cries in languages the raiders did not understand. They became something more than soldiers. They became terror. The Void Harvesters broke. They ran. For the first time in recorded history, Void Harvesters retreated from a battle they were winning by numbers alone. Osh watched them go, watched them flee from 5 wounded humans who should have been dead hours ago, and he finally understood why the galaxy feared this young species. It was not their weapons, it was not their ships, it was not their technology. It was their refusal to accept defeat, their absolute certainty that they could not lose, their willingness to die for people they had never met. Commander's voice came through the communication device one final time. It was weak, tired, but there was triumph in it. "Third enemy ship destroyed. Ground team, the sky is clear." Sergeant sat down heavily on a piece of rubble. Blood pooled beneath her. Her soldiers collapsed around her, exhausted beyond measure. "We did it," someone said. "We actually did it." The blue-skinned girl walked over to Corporal. She still held his hand. She said something in her language that Osh did not understand. Smiled at her. "You are welcome." Above them, somewhere beyond the smoke and fire, the Steadfast drifted in the void. Broken, burning, but victorious. Osh looked at the humans around him, at their wounds, at their exhaustion, at their smiles. He had come to observe monsters. He was beginning to wonder if he had found something else entirely. The Coalition relief fleet arrived 6 hours later. By then, the smoke had begun to clear, and the full scope of the destruction became visible. Buildings that had once housed families were nothing but rubble. Streets that had once been filled with life were silent and empty. The mining colony on 442B would never recover. It would become a memorial, a grave marker for those who had died. But not everyone had died. Osh sat on a piece of broken stone and watched the rescue shuttles land. 47 survivors had been pulled from the ruins. Most of them were children. All of them were alive because a single human ship had refused to follow logic. Medical teams rushed across the devastated landscape. They carried stretchers and medical equipment. They shouted orders in multiple languages. They worked with the desperate efficiency of people who had seen too much death and wanted to save what lives remained. Sargent was loaded onto a stretcher. She had lost consciousness an hour after the battle ended, her body finally surrendering to wounds it should not have survived. Corporal walked beside her, still holding the hand of the blue-skinned girl who would not let him go. "Will she live?" Osh asked one of the medical officers. The human looked at them with tired eyes. "Sergeant, probably. Humans are hard to kill." Hard to kill. Osh thought about those words as he watched the evacuation proceed. He had seen Sargent fight with a broken arm. He had seen her take wounds that would have killed her twice over. He had seen her laugh in the face of impossible odds. Hard to kill was an understatement. A shuttle descended from orbit, larger than the others. It carried markings that Osh recognized. Coalition Command. Important people were coming to see what had happened. Admiral stepped off the shuttle. He was an older human with gray hair and a face that looked like it had been carved from stone. His uniform was decorated with medals that represented decades of service. He walked with the confidence of someone who had seen everything. But when he saw the survivors, when he saw the 5 wounded soldiers who had held a line against impossible numbers, something in his expression changed. "Commander," he asked. "Aboard the Steadfast," one of the officers replied. "Critical condition. The medical team is working on her now." "And Lieutenant Park?" "Stable, multiple fractures. He refused evacuation until all the survivors were off the planet." Admiral nodded slowly. He walked toward the survivors, toward the children who huddled together in groups of their own species. He knelt before them, this powerful human leader, and spoke softly. Osh could not hear the words, but he saw the faces of the children change. Fear became hope. Despair became something like peace. When the Admiral stood, he walked to where Osh sat. "You are the observer," he said. It was not a question. "I am. I have read the preliminary reports. You fought beside our soldiers." Osh looked down at his hands. They still held traces of silver blood, his blood. "I did. I do not fully understand why." Admiral sat down beside him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "My grandmother used to tell me stories," the Admiral said finally. "Stories about the old days before humanity left Earth. She said that the measure of a people is not how they treat their friends. It is how they treat strangers, how they respond when someone they have never met needs help. Your grandmother was wise. She was human." The Admiral smiled slightly. "Same thing sometimes." Osh considered this. In his 200 years, he had observed many species. He had seen empires rise and fall. He had witnessed acts of great cruelty and great kindness, but he had never seen anything like what the humans had done today. "The Steadfast was one ship," he said, "against 3. The ground team was 12 soldiers against hundreds. Every calculation said you would lose. Every logical analysis demanded retreat. And yet here we are." "Yes, here we are." Osh paused. How do you do it? How do you fight battles you cannot win?" Admiral looked up at the sky, where the broken hull of the Steadfast was being towed by a coalition rescue vessel. It was barely recognizable as a ship anymore. Holes covered its surface. Entire sections were missing. By every measure, it should have been destroyed. "We have a saying on Earth," the Admiral said. "It is not about whether you can win. It is about whether the fight is worth fighting." And this fight was worth it, for strangers. Every fight for strangers is worth it. The Admiral stood. "That is what it means to be human observer. We do not fight because we can win. We fight because we must, because someone has to stand between the darkness and those who cannot protect themselves. He walked away, toward the evacuation shuttles where the wounded were being loaded. Osh watched him go. The sun was setting over the ruined colony. Orange light painted the destruction in shades of gold and red. It was beautiful in a terrible way, a reminder that even in the darkest moments there was still light. Corporal approached him. The blue-skinned girl was asleep in his arms, finally exhausted beyond the ability to stay awake. He moved carefully, afraid to wake her. "She has no family left," said quietly. "The Void Harvesters killed everyone. She has no one." "What will happen to her?" "She will be placed with a foster family, given a new home, given a chance to grow up and live a full life." "You saved her," Osh said. "You saved all of them." Shook his head. "We all saved them together, including you, observer." He walked toward the evacuation shuttle, carrying the sleeping child as gently as if she were made of glass. And Osh understood, finally, what he had witnessed today. It was not victory, it was not heroism, it was something simpler, something more profound. It was love, terrible, fierce, unstoppable love. Love that asked nothing in return. Love that knew no boundaries of species or nation or color. Love that would stand against impossible odds and refuse to yield. The humans called it many things: duty, honor, courage. But Osh knew its true name now. He looked up at the darkening sky, at the stars that were beginning to appear, and he finally understood why the galaxy feared humanity. It was not their fury, it was their love. And there was nothing in the universe more terrifying than a human protecting someone they loved. 3 weeks passed before Osh was allowed to leave the Coalition medical vessel. His wounds had healed, the silver scar on his side now a permanent reminder of the day he had forgotten he was an observer. But the deeper changes, the ones that could not be seen, those would take much longer to understand. Commander Laura was alive. The medical team had worked for 18 hours to save her, replacing damaged organs and rebuilding shattered bones. She lay in a private room, surrounded by monitors that tracked her slow recovery. When Osh visited her, she smiled weakly and asked if he had enjoyed the show. "It was educational," he replied. She laughed, then winced at the pain. "Told you it would be." Lieutenant Park was walking again, though he needed a cane for support. His left leg had been crushed when a section of the Steadfast collapsed during the battle. The doctors said he would need months of therapy before he could return to active duty. He did not seem bothered by this. "A small price," he told Osh, "for what we accomplished." Sergeant Maria had been transferred to Earth for specialized treatment. Her injuries were severe, but the reports said she was expected to make a full recovery. Before she left, she found Osh in the observation deck and sat beside him. "I hear you picked up a weapon," she said. "I did not use it well." "You used it, that is what matters." She was quiet for a moment. "Why did you do it, observer? Your people do not fight." Osh had asked himself this question many times in the past 3 weeks. He still did not have a complete answer. "I saw you put yourself between the raiders and those children," he said slowly. "I saw Corporal give away his armor to protect a child he had never met. I saw your soldiers die for strangers without hesitation." He paused. "I could not stand by and do nothing. It would have been wrong." Sergeant nodded. "Now you understand." "I am not sure I do." "You felt it, that is enough." She stood, preparing to leave. "Thank you, Osh, for standing with us." He watched her go. She walked slowly, her wounds still healing, but there was strength in every step. She would fight again. He knew this with absolute certainty. She would stand between innocence and danger until her body could no longer move. Because that was what humans did. The council requested his report 1 week later. Osh sat in his quarters for 3 days, staring at the empty document on his screen. They wanted information about human military capabilities. They wanted tactical analyses and strategic assessments. They wanted to know if humanity was a threat. He began to write. "The humans are dangerous," he typed. "More dangerous than any species I have ever observed. Their technology is not superior. Their numbers are not overwhelming. Their individual soldiers are not notably stronger or faster than those of other species." He paused, considering his next words carefully. "But they possess something that cannot be measured by conventional means. They call it many things: courage, determination, will, but these words do not capture its true nature." He thought of Commander, smiling as she ordered her ship to attack 3 enemies. He thought of Lieutenant Park, calculating impossible odds and attacking anyway. He thought of Sergeant, fighting with a broken arm, refusing to fall. What makes humans dangerous is their refusal to accept defeat. They do not fight because they can win. They fight because they believe the fight is worth fighting. They will stand against impossible odds for people they have never met. They will die for strangers without hesitation. He typed the next line slowly, making sure every word was correct. "Do not make them your enemy. The galaxy contains many powerful species. It contains many ancient civilizations with vast fleets and terrible weapons, but none of them possess what humanity possesses. None of them have that fire in their eyes." He saved the document and prepared to send it. Then he stopped. There was more to say. There was always more to say. "I came to observe monsters," he wrote. "I expected to find a primitive species, barely worthy of notice. Instead, I found something far more terrifying. I found people who would die for those they had never met. I found soldiers who laughed in the face of death. I found a species that defines itself not by what it can take, but by what it can give." He thought of the blue-skinned girl holding Corporal's hand. She had found a foster family among the human colonies. She was learning their language. She was healing. "The terror of humanity is not their fury," Osh wrote. "It is their love. It is their absolute, unwavering commitment to protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Any species can wage war. Any species can destroy. But only humanity would send 1 ship against 3 to save strangers. Only humanity would hold a line with 5 soldiers against hundreds. Only humanity would look at impossible odds and smile." He finished the report and sent it to the council. Then he opened a new document and began typing a different kind of message. "To Coalition Command, I respectfully request a permanent assignment to human operations. I believe my skills as an observer would be best utilized in continued study of human military and cultural practices. I have much to learn from them. We all do." He sent the message and waited. The response came 2 days later. His request was approved. He would serve aboard a human vessel, observing their operations, learning their ways. For the first time in his long career, Osh felt something that might have been excitement. The day before his new assignment began, he visited the memorial that had been erected for those who died on 442B. It was a simple thing, a wall of names carved in stone, hundreds of them, children, workers, families. But beside those names were other words, a human phrase that Osh had come to understand. "They are not forgotten." He stood before the wall for a long time, reading the names of people he had never known, strangers who had died in terror and pain, strangers who had been saved by humans who asked nothing in return. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned to find Corporal Danny standing behind him. The young medic smiled sadly. "She asked me to give you this," said, holding out a small object. It was a drawing done in colored pencil, a simple image of a tall silver figure standing beside a group of humans. Above them, a ship flew through the stars. "The girl," Osh asked. "Her name is. She wanted you to know that she remembers you. She wanted you to know that you are her hero." Osh took the drawing carefully. His hands trembled slightly. "I am not a hero," he said. "I am an observer." Shook his head. "You stood with us, Osh. You picked up a weapon and fought beside us. You stopped being an observer the moment you made that choice." He walked away, leaving Osh alone with the memorial and the drawing and the weight of everything that had changed. The stars shone overhead, the same stars that the Steadfast had fought beneath, the same stars that had witnessed one ship against 3, 5 soldiers against hundreds, a galaxy learning what humanity truly was. Osh looked up at those stars and smiled. He had come to observe monsters. He had found family instead. And he understood, finally, why the galaxy would never be the same. Because humanity had arrived, and they brought their love with them,